At the end of part 4, the queen finds out she's pregnant, but this surprises Bonghwan, who is still stuck inside Queen Cheoljong's body. Bonghwan is shocked and upset because he never imagined something like this could happen. While King Cheoljong and everyone in the palace are happy about the news, Bonghwan feels confused and angry, unsure of how things ended up this way. Now, Bonghwan has to figure out how to deal with the unexpected pregnancy, all while still trapped in the queen's body. The next day, the news of the queen's pregnancy spread throughout the palace, shocking everyone. The one most affected by this news was Byong-in. The woman he loved now completely belonged to Cheoljong. But Kim Moon-gun, who had been feeling down after giving away all his treasures to the people, brightened up instantly when he heard that he would soon become a grandfather. With the queen's pregnancy, both the Grand Empress Dowager and Queen Dowager Jwa came to visit her. As usual, Queen Dowager Jwa brought an amulet, but the queen, suspicious that it might be a curse, refused it, saying she didn't believe in such things. At that time, the Grand Empress Dowager reminded the queen to take care of herself, warning that if anything happened to the baby, it would be the queen's fault. Instead of feeling reassured, the queen only felt more nauseous after their visit. Meanwhile, Jwa Geun met with Minister Jwa. She remembered Queen Dowager Jwa's words that the Punjing Jwa clan and the Anong Kim clan were now united. Then, Jwa Geun asked Minister Jwa not to betray the principles of the Punjing Jwa clan. She threatened to ask her father, who had great influence in the clan, to stop this cooperation if necessary. Jwa Geun did not agree with the alliance between the two clans, fearing it would destabilize Cheoljong's rule. The next morning, Choi, with the help of Hong Yun, began teaching the queen prenatal education. But the queen, already in a bad mood, grew even more stressed when she learned she wasn't allowed to eat her favorite food, ramen. On the other hand, in the forest, young Pyong gave a former royal guard a number of books, asking him to pass them along for others to study. Afterward, young Pyong reported on the progress of tax reforms being implemented in conflict areas to the Donghak rebels. At that time, Cheoljong felt that his efforts to improve the kingdom hadn't fully worked, and he hoped his future son would continue what he started. That night, he visited the queen while she was sleeping and read a message she had written for their child. Cheoljong chuckled as he saw more of the queen's strange vocabulary. The next morning, Queen Dowager Jwa ordered the spy maids to spread rumors that the king and queen were only pretending to have spent the night together. The gossip spread quickly throughout the palace. Hearing about the rumors, the queen decided to do something about it. She met with Cheoljong, and together they acted like a very affectionate couple in front of the palace staff. The maid and eunuchs were left blushing and embarrassed, believing the rumors to be false. It turned out that Queen Dowager Jwa had spread the gossip after hearing from Jwa Geun that the king and queen had pretended to be close since they were teenagers. And Jwa Geun, disappointed in Queen Dowager Jwa's actions, warned her not to cause more trouble for Cheoljong. Later, Jwa Geun came to meet the queen, who was busy talking to the concubines about how to raise a good crown prince. The concubines were excited by the queen's enthusiasm. But when Jwa Geun arrived, she brought a set of her arrows. She gave them to the queen, suggesting that the queen learn archery so she could protect herself. Jwa Geun seemed to support the king and queen in their efforts to fight those trying to take down the government. Shortly after, the queen asked Jwa Geun to teach her archery, but Jwa Geun refused, saying she didn't have much time. It was clear that Jwa Geun had changed her heart and now wanted to help the king and queen. Her wearing a white dress symbolized that she had let go of her past and wanted to return to having pure intentions. After visiting the queen, Jwa Geun met Cheoljong and asked to step down from her position as a concubine and return to being a commoner. And Cheoljong, though shocked, finally agreed with a heavy heart and announced Jwa Geun's request in front of the ministers. However, Jwa Geun's departure greatly upset Queen Dowager Jwa, who then rushed to meet the Grand Empress Dowager to spread more gossip. She claimed that the queen's baby wasn't Cheoljong's child, but Byong-in's. The Grand Empress Dowager was surprised but saw this as an opportunity for her own plans. She spread the rumor further, fueling the idea that the queen's child belonged to Byong-in. She then called Byong-in to meet with her, using the gossip to force him into helping her regain power. The Grand Empress Dowager warned him that if he didn't cooperate, the queen would suffer. Trapped, Byong-in had no choice but to agree to her demands. Meanwhile, Cheoljong was surprised to find Byong-in in his room. Byong-in told him that the Anon Kim clan was planning to overthrow him by spreading rumors about the queen's affair and the secret Donghak code hidden in her children's storybook. Byong-in offered to help, suggesting that he would cover up the gossip while Cheoljong dealt with the Donghak rebels in secret. This would protect the queen and ensure there was no evidence against her. That moment, Cheoljong felt torn. This plan meant he would have to leave the queen, who was still early in her pregnancy. Before departing, he asked the Grand Empress Dowager to protect the queen and their child while he went to war. Hearing that, the Grand Empress Dowager agreed, though her expression seemed a bit suspicious. As Cheoljong prepared to leave, Young Pyong and Hong tried to stop him. Young Pyong believed it could be a trap, but Cheoljong firmly stated that the queen was not the enemy. On the other hand, the queen, after waking up, was informed by Hong that the king had gone to war. Soon after, she rushed to catch up to him, but Cheoljong, not wanting to hesitate, sped away on his horse. As it turns out, his journey was indeed a trap. On the road, he was ambushed by Byong-in and the Minister of War's men. Before their duel, Byong-in asked if Cheoljong wanted help or if he would fight alone. And Cheoljong, realizing there was no way out, prepared for battle. Both were injured in the fierce fight. Meanwhile, back at the palace, the queen, confused by Cheoljong's sudden departure, asked Hong what was going on. There, Hong explained that the king had left to suppress a rebellion. Moments later, the fight between Cheoljong and Byong-in reached its peak when Cheoljong found himself cornered near a cliff. With no other option, Cheoljong bravely jumped into the sea to escape. Back at the palace, the Grand Empress Dowager, who had been given temporary authority by Cheoljong, used her power to bring back the corrupt ministers of the Anon Kim clan and replace Young Pyong as the commander of the palace guards. She also warned everyone not to spread rumors about the queen's pregnancy, threatening punishment for those who disobeyed. And the queen, feeling lost without Cheoljong, decided to sew his initials, CJ, onto a silk cloth, hoping it would somehow bring her comfort. Meanwhile, soldiers who had been searching for the king found his royal clothes by the riverbank. This led to the shocking announcement in the palace that Cheoljong was presumed dead. Everyone was stunned, including the queen, who regretted not being able to stop him from leaving. She wondered if Cheoljong would still be alive if she had never arrived in this era. With the king gone, the throne was left empty. However, since Cheoljong's body had not been found, the Grand Empress Dowager ordered Byong-in to search for it so they could confirm his death and begin the process of appointing a new king. The law allowed 5 days to select a replacement. To prevent any chance of Cheoljong returning, Byong-in planned to close all palace gates, ensuring that if Cheoljong did return, he would no longer be recognized as king. And Young Pyong, still suspicious that the queen was involved in Cheoljong's disappearance, visited her and angrily threatened her. He blamed her for sending the king to war. Just as Young Pyong confronted her, Byong-in arrived with his soldiers. Young Pyong revealed to the queen that it wasn't the rebels who killed the king, but Byong-in's soldiers. However, despite the tension, Young Pyong didn't follow through with his threat, considering that the queen is pregnant with Cheoljong's child. Seeing Young Pyong surrender, Byong-in's troops immediately arrested him and took him to prison. Not only Young Pyong, but Hong was also locked up, accused of losing weapons from the armory. After that, Byong-in called for a meeting with the ministers from both clans, claiming he was worried about an attack from the Donghak rebels. He also asked for approval to close all the border gates, secretly aiming to prevent the king from returning, in case Cheoljong was still alive. That night, the queen disguised herself as a eunuch again and entered the king's morning chamber. Pretending to change the candles, the chief eunuch helped her sneak in. Once inside, the queen carefully examined the body lying there, which was supposed to be Cheoljong's. After a closer look, the queen realized it wasn't really Cheoljong's body. Knowing something was off, she hurried to visit Hong and Young Pyong, who were both in prison. She believed Cheoljong was still alive, and that was why Byong-in had imprisoned the 2 people who could help the king return. In her hall, the Grand Empress Dowager, now holding supreme power, announced her plans to appoint a new king. This news spread quickly throughout the land. A man who read the news left, behaving suspiciously. Meanwhile, In the morning chamber, the Grand Empress Dowager and Queen Dowager Jo were seen crying, mourning the king. Not wanting to be outdone, the queen also began crying dramatically, trying to convince everyone that she was in deep grief. After leaving the morning chamber, the queen found Jwa Geun waiting for her in the Joseon village hall. There, she immediately informed Jwa Geun that Cheoljong wasn't actually dead. Jwa Geun was relieved to hear this news. The next day, Byong-in held another meeting with both clans. In this meeting, he tried to take control of both sides, threatening that if they didn't follow his lead and stop fighting, he would kill anyone who tried to leave the room. That night, after all the maid had left, the queen secretly packed her bow, brought along Jwa Geun, and quietly snuck out of the palace to search for Cheoljong. She also carried with her a scarf with the initials CJ on it, which she had sewn herself. But while on her way, the queen was suddenly stopped by Byong-in. There, she warned him to not block her path again. She told Byong-in that if he truly loved So-young, he would understand her. She pointed out that the So-young standing in front of him was different now. When Byong-in kept insisting on stopping her, the queen shot an arrow at his leg. And Byong-in, now furious, realized that So-young had changed. The gentle So-young he once knew was now bold and fearless. Full of anger, he vowed to return with both the king's and queen's heads. Just when the queen thought she was alone in her mission, it turned out that Choi and Hong Yun had secretly followed her to help. Reluctantly, she allowed them to come along on her journey to find Cheoljong. The next day, Jwa Geun returned to the palace and offered to help the Grand Empress Dowager maintain power in secret. He also set a trap, framing a group of innocent herbal medicine collectors as Donghak rebels who had supposedly killed the king. Meanwhile, as the queen suspected, Cheoljong was still alive. He had found refuge in the house of a mysterious man who had earlier been seen in the marketplace. However, this man was not offering help out of kindness. And Cheoljong, feeling suspicious, began to watch the man, who seemed to be exchanging secret letters with someone outside. Back at the palace, Byong-in prepared to capture the queen. And Kim Hwan, noticing the drastic change in Byong-in's attitude towards the queen, grew worried. He reported the queen's disappearance from the palace the night before to Young Pyong and Hong. On the other hand, Cheoljong, while searching through the mysterious man's belongings, was caught. And the man, realizing what Cheoljong was up to, prepared to finish him off. Meanwhile, Choi and Hong Yun accompanied the queen, making the journey more enjoyable. That night, the three of them slept together, and the queen felt lucky to have such caring and loyal maids. The next morning, they continued their journey under the bright sunshine. Everything seemed peaceful until suddenly, soldiers appeared. Choi quickly told the queen to run while she tried to hold off the soldiers. Unfortunately, Choi was injured when a soldier slashed her. As the queen wanted to help Choi, Hong Yun pulled her into hiding. To protect the queen, Hong Yun ran in a different direction to distract the soldiers. However, the queen's luck ran out when Byong-in himself found her. Furious and heartbroken, Byong-in cornered the queen on the edge of a cliff. In a fit of rage, he grabbed the queen by the neck and demanded to know who she really was and what she had done to So-young. Barely able to breathe, Bong-hwan, trapped in So-young's body, confessed that he had no idea what had happened. When he woke up, he found himself inside Queen So-young's body. Hearing this, Byong-in, who still had feelings for So-young, released his grip and asked when Bong-hwan's soul had taken over. Bong-hwan then explained the strange situation of how he became trapped in the queen's body, even recalling So-young's memories. Suddenly, more soldiers arrived to capture the queen, but Byong-in stepped forward to protect her. Despite his efforts, the soldiers attacked him. While fleeing, Byong-in and the queen were confronted by eunuch, who had been sent by Jwa Geun to capture her. Then, a fierce fight broke out, and during a brief moment when the eunuch was distracted, Byong-in handed the queen a letter. The letter contained evidence of a treason plan by the Anong Kim and Punjeong-jo clans. He hoped it would help save the queen. Tragically, to protect the woman he loved, Byong-in sacrificed his life, falling at the hands of the eunuch. And the queen, now alone and exhausted, ran without direction until she saw someone walking toward her. When the person uncovered their face, to her surprise, it was Cheoljong. Overcome with relief, she cried in his arms, telling him that Choi, Hong-yun, and Byong-yin had died. Cheoljong was shocked to hear about Byong-yin, but then shared good news that Choi and Hong-yun were safe. Soon after, Cheoljong took the queen to a safe place, where she reunited with Choi and Hong-yun. It turned out that Choi had only suffered a small injury when she slipped, and the soldier's sword barely scratched her. Meanwhile, back at the palace, the eunuch reported that they had failed to capture the queen. During the chase, the soldiers and the eunuch were attacked by Donghak rebels, who were secretly allied with Cheoljong. At that time, Jwa Geun was shocked when he heard this news. Elsewhere, Jwa Geun was working alone, putting up flyers around the city. The flyers exposed the Anon Kim clan for trying to get rid of the king and slandering innocent people. They also revealed that King Cheoljong was still alive. In the royal kitchen, the chef was lost in thought, deeply saddened by the news of the king's supposed death. He remembered the night before Choi left to accompany the queen, when Choi had suddenly confessed her love to him. With the king, queen, and Choi all gone, the chef felt lonely and unmotivated. One of his assistants whispered something to him, and upon hearing it, the chef made a sudden decision to leave the palace and hand over his responsibilities to his assistant. In her cold hiding spot, the queen gently wraps a shawl she made with the letters CJ on it around Cheoljong's shoulders. Seeing that, he smiles, touched by the gesture. He then tells the queen that he's been using the military tactics she taught the Donghak group. It turns out the king has secretly been working with the Donghak followers. Earlier, young Pyong had handed over books to a man, which were military strategy books written by the king for the Donghak to learn. For Cheoljong, the main enemies right now were the corrupt officials in the government, who needed to be stopped. The mysterious man who had helped and almost killed Cheoljong was actually the father of Damhyang, the young maid. Because of the queen's bond with Damhyang, the man decided not to kill Cheoljong. Later that night, in the tent, the queen gave Cheoljong a letter that Byong-yin had passed to her before he died. The letter listed officials who had betrayed the king. As they were discussing their next move, they suddenly heard the royal chef's voice outside. The Donghak had captured him in the forest. The chef was terrified but relieved when he saw the king and queen. He was even happier when he saw Choi, who had just arrived. Inside the tent, the queen came up with a plan to sneak back into the palace. She suggested they use the food delivery route. With the royal chef knowing the schedule of deliveries, they all agreed that this was the best way to get into the palace without being noticed. After making their plan, the king, queen, and the ladies arrived at the spot where Byong-yin had taken his last breath. At that time, the queen was heartbroken to see Byong-yin's body still sitting there. She asked to bury him with her own hands, feeling the need to honor him. Meanwhile, at the palace, the Grand Empress Dowager had just finished her massage when Jwa Geun came to inform her that Byong-yin had died trying to save the queen. When she found out that the king and queen were still alive, the Grand Empress Dowager was furious. And Jwa Geun, who was there, started suspecting the blind maid, remembering their failed attempt to poison the queen. However, he decided not to kill her because she didn't seem suspicious when threatened. After Jwa Geun left, Kim Moon-gun visited the Grand Empress Dowager, bringing the leaflets that Jwa Geun had been spreading. Kim Moon-gun, who had lost contact with his daughter, began to lose his patience and blamed the Grand Empress Dowager's policies for tarnishing the Anon Kim clan's name. On the other hand, Jwa Geun followed the blind maid, suspecting that she was a spy. After confirming she worked for Cheoljong, Jwa Geun decided to kill her. Later, Cheoljong, thinking about the election system the queen had mentioned, dreamed of making Joseon a better place by using that system. While the others slept, he asked her if she truly came from the future. He wanted to know the outcome of their struggle. And the queen, though hesitant, told him that he would lose, but she promised to stay by his side and help him until the end. In prison, young Pyong, feeling helpless, told Hong to use Kim Hwan's help. At the same time, Kim Hwan came to offer his support. Hong, who felt guilty for pretending to be Kim Hwan's friend just to gather information about the Anon Kim clan, finally confessed his true intentions to Kim Hwan. The day of the coronation arrived, and the new king was still just a child and clearly part of Jwa Geun's plan to control him easily. Jwa Geun then met with the eunuch and gave him a gun, instructing him to shoot the king if Cheoljong appeared at the palace. Meanwhile, in prison, young Pyong was sentenced to exile, and Hong was sentenced to be a government slave for 600 days. Their punishments would be carried out after the coronation. On the other hand, the king and queen were ready to sneak into the palace using a food cart. No matter what happened, they were prepared for the worst. Moments later, their cart eventually arrived at the palace, but suddenly, they were stopped by Kim Jwa Geun's group. There, Kim Jwa Geun drew his sword and stabbed the cart, but luckily, the king and queen weren't hurt and managed to enter the palace safely. Before their mission started, the queen unexpectedly kissed the king, showing her affection. Then, the mission to stop the coronation began. Dressed in royal attire, they together to take down the palace guards, including Byong-in's best friend, who was killed by Cheoljong. However, the Grand Empress Dowager and Kim Jwa Geun rushed the coronation ceremony to avoid Cheoljong from stopping it in time. At that moment, Cheoljong started to panic because he arrived too late to stop the coronation. However, the queen had prepared a backup plan. She met with Kim Hwan and gave him a mission to steal the royal seal, which was needed for the coronation. Without the royal seal, the ceremony couldn't proceed. As expected, the Grand Empress Dowager and the Anon Kim clan were shocked when they found the box for the royal seal empty. Thanks to Bongwan's cleverness, Cheoljong now had a chance to stop the new king from being crowned. And Kim Hwan, who didn't know what to do with the royal seal, brought it to Hong and young Pyong, who were still in prison. They were just as shocked as he was to see it. At the same time, guards approached, but Hong took the chance to escape. Outside, the Donghak rebels teamed up with court ladies and royal chefs, using tear gas at the border gate to create confusion. Inside the palace, Cheoljong, the queen, and their loyal companions launched an attack. They successfully entered the nearly empty palace hall. But suddenly, the eunuch aimed his weapon at Cheoljong. At that moment, the queen noticed and quickly moved to shield him. On the other hand, Hong and young Pyong, who had managed to escape, shot at the eunuch and chased him down. Meanwhile, the king and queen were left in danger. Then, out of nowhere, the queen felt intense pain. Turns out, Bongwan's original soul was being pulled back into the modern world, and the queen could feel the change coming. And Bongwan, who had been in a coma for a long time, finally woke up in a hospital. He immediately panicked, remembering King Cheoljong's dangerous situation. Realizing he was back in a modern world and couldn't help Cheoljong anymore, as the event had happened 200 years ago, he felt helpless. Still in his hospital gown, he ran out of the hospital, chased by the police. Confused and desperate, Bongwan went to a bookstore and searched for a history book about the Joseon kings. He found a section that talked about King Cheoljong's reign, eager to know what happened after he left. Back in the Joseon-era, Queen Soyoung's soul, which had been quietly hidden inside her own body all this time, finally took back control. While Bongwan's soul was stronger and often in control, Soyoung's real soul had always been there, sometimes taking over, especially when near Cheoljong. As the queen struggled to survive, she found Cheoljong, who finally woke up. Thankfully, Cheoljong had been wearing a bulletproof vest, a clever idea suggested by Bongwan. While trying to escape, Kim Jwa Geun appeared and nearly injured Cheoljong. But Soyoung bravely used a hairpin to stab Kim Jwa Geun in the leg, giving Cheoljong a chance to fight back. Although Cheoljong was hurt, he fought hard and defeated Kim Jwa Geun. Instead of giving him a quick death, Cheoljong chose a harsh punishment, deciding that Kim Jwa Geun would live a life full of suffering. Moments later, Cheoljong arrived at the coronation holding the royal seal, shocking all the Anon Kim officials present. His arrival immediately stopped the ceremony to crown the young king. With ease, Cheoljong was able to prevent the coronation. In the village hall, the queen was in critical condition after being shot. Cheoljong stayed by her side day and night, worrying about her. His dedication paid off when the queen regained consciousness. The palace doctor checked on her and confirmed that both the queen and her baby were healthy. Slowly, things in the palace began to return to normal. Meanwhile, the Grand Empress Dowager, who had tried to overthrow the king, was punished and sent to the Western Palace. And Queen Dowager Jo, who had spread rumors that the queen's baby was not the king's, was also punished and exiled to the Western lands. The corrupt ministers received a 3-year prison sentence, and all their wealth was confiscated by the state. Later, the queen visited Byung Yin's grave in the forest, crying as she remembered their memories. In the end, those closest to the king and queen began to live better lives. Soon after, Choi and the royal chef finally reunited, and Jwa Geun opened her heart to young Pyeong. And Kim Moon-gun, who regretted his past mistakes, felt the sincere support of the people. On the other hand, the innocent Kim Hwan was given an important job as a delegate to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Back to Bong Hwan, who had now returned to the modern world, felt relieved. He read in a history book that King Cheoljong successfully led his reign. There, Bong Hwan smiled when he saw a picture of Cheoljong in the book and remembered the king's funny expression when comforting the queen. After his time in the Joseon-era, Bong Hwan was chased by the police again. However, this time, they weren't trying to arrest him, but were actually protecting him. Bong Hwan had helped uncover the crimes of Secretary Han and Bu Sung-min, and it turned out that Bong Hwan had fallen from his apartment because of them, which caused him to fall into a coma. Bong Hwan realized that the changes in Cheoljong's fate also brought changes to his own life. Now, he returned to living a better life in the modern world. Meanwhile, Cheoljong was busy with the transfer of power, but he missed the queen. Turns out the queen felt the same, and since that day, she hadn't seen Cheoljong. Even though they both tried to visit each other, they couldn't meet. Finally, the queen decided to wait for Cheoljong by the lake. Cheoljong met the queen there, and they happily reunited. And with that, the series ends. The moral lesson from this series is time traveling to the past is wild. But no matter what, never underestimate the power of a good bowl of ramen and some bulletproof vests.